Oh, wow. Yeah, we got them down. Okay. Again, we're back with class in session. And I'm kind of doing a deep dive into something that is definitely in the Black culture, extremely unpopular. But I really believe that we learn in some of the most uncomfortable areas. That's where true scholarship and academia exists, when we examine the things that have become in our society a truth, in an uncontested fact, like black people should vote because so many people died for us to vote. Well, no, um, they died for access and equality, not for a mandate for you to have to do something. It was for inclusion, opportunity, and access. And if you chose not to participate, there wasn't a mandate for you to participate. But in that, certain truths have come out, where, though Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was um, murdered by the nation and applauded by the majority of whites when it happened, and unsupported by the majority of whites and politicians toward the end of his life. Suddenly, they had the Mandela effect as to where black people who have preached and pushed ideologies of forgiving and loving the people who have been worse to you and have taken your riches, and you're supposed to love them while they have more than what they need. Um, it People have bought into that, including black people, and I really want to look at that. And what inspired this, I was reading the autobiography of MLK, the autobiography of Nelson Mandela, the autobiography of Mahatma Gandhi, the autobiography of Malcolm X. And that's what had me looking at white supremacy, looking at um, the different structures that have existed and have been passed around the world these outcomes for these outcomes, these hedonistic outcomes within European reality. I'm not even going to say culture, because it doesn't matter what Europeans it is or where it is in the world. It's this hedonism of personal gratification, of wealth beyond measure, even within European culture. It's like, it's not like Europeans love themselves and hate everybody else. Historically, their activity is hate everybody, because even within European culture, the majority of Europeans are abused by Europeans, especially when we're talking economically. So, on a moral level, if you enjoy feeling that I am, I function at a different spiritual level as the people around me. Well, then what, no matter what I am lacking in life, uh, then you would take Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s ideology well. If you believe that the afterlife, the version of Christianity given to Black people by the very people who don't follow that ideology, um, that in the afterlife you're going to get these wonderful things, um, then that's as strong as Christianity is strong with you. But when we really begin to look at things on a social, economic, cultural level, removing um, blessings in the hereafter ideology of religion and hypocrisy of saying one thing and doing another, I think what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was purveying was who we would like people to be and not who people are. Um, if you are anybody who disagrees with what I just said, if you are rearing your children, are you rearing your children to integrate with thieves? Are you rearing your children to integrate with rapists? Are you in? Are you in? Are you teaching your children? You're rearing your children to integrate with liars, pedophiles, misogynists, terrorists, um, with people who only see their hedonistic desires, narcissists. That's who you're rearing. That's who you're rearing your children to integrate with. That is just not true. That's not true. In the same country that we're saying love and forgive, and when you're hiring, everybody asks, have you been convicted of something? Now, socially, we're supposed to forget the genocide, the taking of land, uh, the wars created over wealth, all that stuff we're supposed to just forget. Well, they didn't know any better, but we don't do that on the job application. We don't. Have you been convicted of a that? Oh no. If you've been convicted of a felony, you can't even vote. But the felonies that built this country, oh, we're supposed to forgive that. And I'm saying, but Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was definitely a genius, and I will come nowhere near a Nobel Peace Prize. And but for him, this analysis would not be possible. So we're not saying that his value is decreased in any way, but realistically, his ideology was socially expedient to white supremacy and capitalism. Though it shamed them, which ultimately cost him his life, especially what cost him his life ultimately was that he shifted his war on civility to a war on poverty. So when he started messing with money, that was done. But in no other phase is that practiced in our community. This moral suasion, we don't get moral suasion on our bills. Nobody practices that. We don't get moral suasion in our economy. We don't get moral suasion in our government. We don't get moral suasion even in religion. Are we building congregations like Elijah Muhammad did with the downtrodden, the imprisoned? No, no, we don't want those people. So why is it the people with the worst history on earth, that's who we want to integrate with? That's who we want to control our education system. That's who we want to control our language. That's who we want to control our economies. That's who we want to control our legacy. That's who we want. And again, this is a thought experiment. This is not saying I don't want to, I regret going to universities, or that I regret uh, being an American. But I'm saying we can entertain ideas without necessarily subscribing to them. And we may come to some things that we do subscribe to if we're willing to take that challenge. But as long as we've heard politicians from the government that coordinated his death and people who quote him politically, that are whose policies are diametrically opposed to any type of inclusionary reality, we've come to accept, basically by white acceptance, that Dr. Martin Luther King and the integrationists, W.B. Du Bois, which W.B. Du Bois actually found out in his life that that wasn't the move. He ended up leaving the country. So perhaps the greater ideologies were in our Booker T. Washingtons, were in our kind of Elijah Muhammad, definitely our Garveys, our Pan Africanist leaders, our Frederick Douglasses. There is a thin line of analysis between humanism and integration. Should all humans act right? And wouldn't it be great if we all worked together and could do things, and then we wouldn't try to take stuff from each other and all of that? Yes, that would be great. So as far as humanism is concerned, that's a beautiful ideology, but historically, it has not panned out to be a reality. So humanism put aside, is integration really a logical idea, especially under the context in which we're talking about America? Why would a Native American integrate with anybody in the United States? Now, I've spent significant time, significant time with Native Americans, and I understand why they are so distant. And why have we lost I can't say we've lost it because there is no evidence that Europeans have ever had it. The ability to resist hedonism, it's very conveniently, they can write the greatest documents that they don't follow. You ever read the Bill of Rights and the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution? Oh man, we the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, and ensure domestic tranquility. Oh my God, that is just so beautiful. No intention to do any of that. Because as soon as it gets to a point, the conversation jumps from we the people to me. In South Africa right now, they're talking about, okay, we need to fix, we need to reverse colonization. And person after person after person, white South Africans are standing up talking about them. I came here, I went to college, I became a doctor, and now you're talking about retracting the land that I bought. It's not about you. It's about the system. And the thing is, the same person is talking about them being exception to that system. That means that they know what the system is. That's why they're separating themselves from it. But they don't want to, they want to act like that system doesn't exist because their individual reality is what matters. But you came to South Africa to be part of a system. So it's that jumping back and forth. When I talk about white supremacy, if you're not a white supremacist, it shouldn't bother you because you are aware of how this country formed. But we would rather act like I had a conversation online. I posted about the Sioux tribe where a number of Sioux were hung for defending themselves against the United States government taking their land, and they fought against the settlers who were thereby the beneficiaries. And another professor that I know who follows me on social media said, well, Lincoln pardoned hundreds of those people, and it's irresponsible to talk about the people who were hung as opposed to talking about the people who were pardoned. So, okay, now I was commemorating an atrocity within Native American culture. You brought in white people. Cool. Let's have that conversation. I see myself as an expert in Lincoln. So I love a Lincoln conversation. But this was less of a Lincoln conversation and more of a logic conversation. And so what are you trying to accomplish by stating a people who were being attacked, who had their land, culture, resources, government, religion taken, and they fought against it. And the leader of the group that was the beneficiary of this taking forgave them for defending themselves. I hung some of them, but you should say that he pardoned them. No, a argument is when he found out that happened, he reversed the land that was taken and gave it back to the Sioux. No, he didn't do that. He just didn't kill all of the people that fought back. This is a university professor. But that's how, okay, no, because the entire thing was white. And I wasn't, in posting that, I was thinking of my connection to the Shoshone Paiutes of northwestern United States in commemorating the atrocities that have happened to make sure that they are remembered. I have no problem talking about white supremacy. In fact, that's where the conversation ended up going. So, well, if you just want to always make white people look bad, well, no, because had you interjected a conversation about Thaddeus Stevens or uh, about Charles Sumner or about John Brown or about any of the whites that gave their lives or have dedicated their lives and intelligence and resources to fairness, justice, and equality, I would love to, I support those brothers and sisters historically as well. And that was another thing that I pointed out. If I'm making a historic argument, as I am right now against Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., that's what it is. History is communication, characters, events, and artifacts. Once I go outside those things, I'm not talking history anymore. But if I am within that purview, we should keep it in that purview. But when you run out of communication, facts, characters, and events and artifacts, now you want to turn ideological and racial. Because you've run out of facts. So, is it possible that we have overplayed our MLK hand? That perhaps the integration ideas and ideals of MLK and revolutionaries like him were wrong? Is it ever a good idea to integrate with horrible people?